Let's bring in Lester Munson, former staff director for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and senior fellow at the National Security Institute. Lester, thank you for your time. We just heard from Robert there. Do you think the world will ever know the truth surrounding Navalny's death?
I don't think so, although we certainly know enough to know that he was basically murdered by the Putin regime. He was unjustly jailed. He was sent to a really nasty place in the Arctic just a couple of weeks ago. I've seen some terms from Russia. He died of sudden death syndrome. No matter what the actual details are, it is clear Putin murdered Alexei Navalny.
Yeah, that sudden death syndrome, an interesting classification there, Lester. What does Navalny's death mean for Russia as a whole?
Well, I think it's certainly a tremendous symbol of one man's willingness to make sacrifices for his love for his country. His wife, Yulia, is going to carry on this message, it appears, quite ably. She's already talking to leaders in Europe. I expect we'll see her soon in Washington, D.C., talking to the White House, talking to Congress. So it's also important for the rest of us to remember there are people in Russia who want to see an alternative to Vladimir Putin, millions of them. Many of them are part of the expatriate community here in the United States and other countries. Russians want an alternative to Vladimir Putin. Alexei Navalny was a living symbol of that desire.
And how likely is there now to be an alternative to Putin with Navalny now dead?
Well, that remains to be seen. Will this have an impact on the people close to Vladimir Putin? Will they see that his type of rule may be very bad for the people of Russia, for the country that they very likely love dearly? Will they take steps to see that there's an alternative to Putin's rule? I think the real question is, what will the people close to Vladimir Putin do now that they have seen his brutality in such a very blatant way?
You know, Lester, I'd like to pull out now and talk about Putin's war in Ukraine. What does this recent capturing of Avdiivka mean for the war when it comes to strategy, when it comes to future assaults?
Well, I think the momentum for sure is with Russia at this moment. Putin appears to be capitalizing on that. The terrible death of Alexei Navalny, the kind of schizophrenic approach from Washington, where the White House is pushing for more assistance for Ukraine. Congress, particularly the House of Representatives, doesn't seem inclined to give it. Can these events change the minds of policymakers in Washington? I certainly hope so. One of the real decisive factors here, frankly, is how the U.S. Congress is going to react to Navalny's death and apparent Russian momentum on the battlefield in Ukraine.
You know, and you mentioned Congress and the fact that this money is being held up. Is Ukraine, do you think, going to be able to keep up its fight if it does not receive that critical aid from the U.S.?
I think it can. The hearts of the Ukrainian people we have seen over the last couple of years are enormous. Their courage, their willingness to make sacrifices for their country, I don't think we should ever underestimate them. It would certainly help them if the U.S. Congress stepped up and provided them with the weapons and the ammunition they need. There are alternative things that can happen. I think the administration finding energy alternatives for European countries so they don't have to rely on Russian energy and enrich Putin's regime. European countries can step up and give more assistance while Congress is dithering. But it would certainly be helpful if Congress would step up and do the right thing.
You know, Lester, my last question for you. We, at this point, are now just days away from hitting the 2-year mark of this war in Ukraine. How much longer do you think this can go on?
For many more years. This could be another frozen conflict. Russian forces are in Georgia. They're in Moldova. This is part of the Vladimir Putin playbook. So unless Ukraine is given the wherewithal to actually push those Russian forces out of Ukraine, this conflict is going to go on for quite some time.
All right, yeah, we will certainly see what happens. Lester Munson, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.